Mr. Hayes, the following quotes have been attributed to you with regards to 545. Quote, whether there are 5 people protesting or 1,000 people protesting, I just think it is the correct thing to do for our district. Close quote. What an arrogant statement to make. How many protesters would it take for you to start caring, Mr. Hayes? 10,000? 100,000? Is it a democratically elected school trustee in theory not supposed to represent the concerns of the majority of its electorate? In addressing a homophobia breakfast recently, you thanked them for their support and seemed to apologize for those who have been opposing 545 when you said, quote, it makes us from the board in Burnaby feel that while there may be a very vocal minority out there that are fighting against us and this policy, this community, being the gay community, and the community in general, is on our side, close quote. Here's a newsflash for you, Mr. Hayes. The people asking for more information and time on this matter are not a minority. And the community in general is on our side, not yours. Mr. Sanshin, I don't know how to pronounce it, VP of the BTAs, okay. Is on record, again, I don't know all the players involved here, I'm new at this. You're on record for praising the board for passing the draft and have urged the board to adopt the final draft, quote, swiftly and unedited. Swiftly and unedited. What's the rush? Afraid of some public scrutiny by the masses will water down and even shut down this misguided document? In your comments, speaking to Mr. Hayes, in your comments in Burnaby Now last week entitled District Refuses to Budge, you firmly stated that the public consultation period isn't being extended, despite requests for a 90-day extension, and while you're, quote, open to hearing other views, you're, quote, unlikely to start the process again. If it is a foregone conclusion, come hell or high water, that 545 will be passed in June, then why are we here tonight, Mr. Hayes? I don't know about you, but I'd rather be watching the game. Are these public consultations simply a charade to make us feel like we've had our say on this matter? It would seem to me that one way or another, 545 is going through, either as is or with a little makeup. I wouldn't be the first person to raise the fact that the language and terms contained in this document are frightening and illogical. The very title, homophobia/heterosexism, alone is what a rational person should find shocking as a policy document. Homophobia is, again, a coined word meaning literally an irrational fear of man, or in this case, an irrational, emphasis on irrational, fear on a homosexual/lesbian lifestyle. I do not hold an irrational fear of either. What I do, however, have is a rational fear of where this propaganda is coming from and where it is headed if it becomes codified in District 41. Heterosexism is another propaganda word which pitches heterosexuals as dangerous by default. I am heterosexual, Mr. Hayes. Does that make me dangerous? Does that make me dangerous? Perhaps the document should be renamed heterophobia. Finally, some of the definitions contained in 545 are simply absurd. Take the fluid definition of gay. As per the document, gay can refer to a man who is romantically, emotionally, and or sexually involved with another man. I've had a lot of emotions about you over this policy, Mr. Hayes, most of them negative. Does that make me gay, Mr. Hayes? Does that make me gay? As a concerned parent, do you think I'm overreacting? Here are some quotes from a recent interview with Queerty contributor Danielle Valera in the US. Quote, we want educators to teach future generations of children to accept queer sexuality. In fact, our very future depends on it. Recruiting children? You bet we are. Why would we push anti-bullying programs or social studies classes that teach kids about the historical contributions of famous queers unless we wanted to deliberately educate children to accept queer sexuality as normal? This is still his quote. And I and a lot of other people want to indoctrinate, recruit, teach, and expose children to queer sexuality, and there's nothing wrong with that, close quote. Still think I'm overreacting, Mr. Hayes? Recruiting and indoctrinating is exactly what the Corn Agreement, C-O-R-E-N, agreement, the secretly signed deal with the Corns, 2 gay activists, with them and the Minister of Education and Attorney General to settle human rights cases in 1999 and later in 2006. The Corn Agreement is ultimately, in my opinion, the driving force behind 5.45. This and other information is available on theparentsvoice.org. Mr. Hayes, your people have said that Burnaby is, quote, not actually leading the charge in this regard, being the 13th school district in the province to adopt such a policy. This is highly misleading, as most of these other policies avoid the use of discriminatory and inflammatory language. Burnaby has followed in the dubious footsteps of Vancouver and Nanaimo school districts in labeling those with differing opinions as, quote, dangerous to communities and individuals. 7 of the 12 school districts have simply added discrimination based on sexual orientation as unacceptable, bringing their policies in line with the Burnaby School District's existing code of conduct, which already protects against discrimination based on sexual orientation. The existing code of conduct is an excellent example of a code which protects the rights of all students, legal liability of the school board if a case were brought before it. If it isn't working well, then revise your enforcement of it. I made a request for information 2 weeks ago under the Freedom of Information Act, which I'm still waiting to hear back from. The board has been very slow to add background documents to the website and resistive to releasing sensitive information. I implore you for 90 days to receive and digest any forthcoming information. If there is nothing to hide, then why so guarded and with what is released and when it is released? By shoving 545 down our throats, the board itself is creating a toxic, hostile environment. Finally, I will say this. November, as many of us know, is election time. The chances of some of you being reelected is in jeopardy because of this bill. If there isn't somebody who steps up to the plate, I myself will take one of your jobs, and I will run.
Yay!
Okay, anyways, those are my prepared remarks. Coconut stand.
Thank you. Trustees, any questions or clarification? See none, we'll move on to our 5th delegation.